Dobry wieczór. Tutaj William. Witajcie na cotygodniowym podsumowaniu polskich wiadomości ze mną, William Murphy. With the first ballot in the Polish presidential election taking place this coming Sunday, and with many Polish nationals in Ireland having already returned their postal ballot, we're focusing this week on that very important and closely fought contest. Therefore, we're delighted to be joined by a special guest, the leading Polish journalist and political commentator Edyta Hołdyńska. Edyta is a journalist at Telewizja Polska and Tygodnik Sieci. She is the author of the book Emigracja Ambicji, which reports on young emigrants from Poland, as well as many stories, interviews, reports and television programmes in the fields of international and national politics, as well as society and the economy. She's collaborated with, amongst others, Rzeczy, Rzeczpospolita, Uważam Rze and Gazeta Olsztynska. Dobry wieczór, Edyto. Dziękuję bardzo za rozmowę z Irlandia z Polski.
Dobry wieczór.
To begin, what have been the major issues in the campaign to date? I know that President Duda has strongly rebutted criticism in the foreign media of his comments about LGBT rights.
Those statements and parliamentary statements in the campaign that has shown in Polish politics, not Andrzej Duda, but in some other people, will turn against Andrzej Duda. They said ideologically, not people, and if people are abnormal. Such words, even out of context, in the election campaign are excellent ground for political opponents to Andrzej Duda. And I think the image of the President Andrzej Duda will suffer. Andrzej Duda did not say anything that discriminates LGBT community at the time that he was signing the family card. But the homophobe patch has already been created not only in Poland, but also in Western media. This is very dangerous, and politicians should simply watch what they are saying. The election campaign is not about who will offend the LGBT more strongly. It's not against people that Andrzej Duda wants to defend the Polish family. He wants to defend against sexualization for children, introducing ideology to schools. I think this is a misunderstanding what has shown in Western media.
So I know that from, say, a presidential as opposed to a parliamentary election, what do most people vote on? Is it more kind of general visions for the future of Poland, whether a conservative Poland or a more liberal Poland, or practical day-to-day concerns, such as the economic impact of COVID-19, given that it's the government that's responsible for the day-to-day management of the economy rather than the president?
I think it is about social hearing, about hearing what people are saying. This is the most important thing right now in the campaign. And the generation of our parents remembers perfectly the moment when they had to recalculate how many years they had to retire, to retirement, and although no polls asked for their opinion, for less than a year, these people had to work longer to retire well-deserved retirement. This is, I am saying about both Platforma Obywatelska and PSL did already. And they already know that this was one of the biggest mistakes, simply included the elections that we had before.
So you feel that the various social programs which PiS has introduced will still help Andrzej Duda in this election?
Yes, I think so. This is why both Rafał Trzaskowski and Władysław Kosiniak-Kamysz pretend today that they have regained hearing of what people had to say. This social hearing that allowed Andrzej Duda and Prawo i Sprawiedliwość to win the presidential and parliamentary elections in 2015 and 2016. I think also today people had to simply answer to those questions. They are tired of the pride and inhuman power. People turned to those who promised to give tax money to their families. Simply, that was the reason that Prawo i Sprawiedliwość won the elections in 2015. The procedure was brilliant. 500 plus. Was brilliant in its simplicity, although strongly criticized by then opposition as giving away. It was number one factor. Number two, no less important, however, retirement age. As I said before, Rafał Trzaskowski no longer remembers even that he voted in of raising it. This is a very, very big mistake in his option right now. But I think the fight between Andrzej Duda and Rafał Trzaskowski will be very, very strong in this week. We will watch this strong fight.
From an outside perspective, I think it's fair to say that Andrzej Duda has been a popular and trusted president during his first term, if you look at his general popularity ratings. But there are certainly disparate power centres within the Polish ruling bloc, with Jarosław Kaczynski widely perceived as being the real ruler of Poland. Is that a fair assessment of Duda, that he's regarded personally at least as being a popular figure?
I think people didn't know Andrzej Duda as president, as politician even in 2015, but now it is because people can see his credibility. People can see Andrzej Duda, what he said is been done. It is a main issue that a politician can have right now in Poland, in Ireland, in America, everywhere. So this is very important. And one feature that has President Andrzej Duda from his opponents, what I said, this is authenticity.
So regarding the personalities in the race, prior to the replacement of Małgorzata Kidawa-Błońska as the Platforma Obywatelska candidate, the independent Szymon Hołownia was a surprise, almost novelty candidate who surged in the polls. He's now running in third place, I gather, from the opinion polls. Has his best opportunity of progressing to the second ballot now passed?
Małgorzata Kidawa-Błońska simply did not arouse enthusiasm even from the hard electorate of her own party, Platforma Obywatelska. The number of her mishap from poor preparation for public speaking, for which the staff had to be blamed, the staff for Platforma Obywatelska, was alarming simply. 2%, this is very, very poor for main opposition party in the country. The candidate talked about dialogue and conversation all the time. She repeated empty slogans that did not even relate to the politics of her own party, Platforma Obywatelska. And Szymon Hołownia is a media creation, I think. He's a former TV presenter, and no party officially stands behind him, but he has already challenged that he would give his support to Rafał Trzaskowski in the second ballot if it will be. He strongly opposed the church in Poland. He wants to separate Pałac Prezydencki from the church. Pałac Prezydencki od kościoła chce rozdzielić. He was known as a Catholic publicist before, so it's strange, it is weird. Media creation, as I said.
Okay. When you mentioned that his support is likely to transfer more to Trzaskowski in the second ballot, is it also fair to say that the Konfederacja candidate's support would be more likely to transfer to Andrzej Duda? Whereas I know Biedron's support is more or less collapsed in the polls now that Trzaskowski has entered.
We don't know what Konfederacja will do in the second ballot, because now Konfederacja is positioned for Andrzej Duda. this is a conservative party also as
Yes.
Prawo i Sprawiedliwość. So we don't know, but this is especially worth of watching this in Ireland and in Great Britain, because I watched how Polish people living in Ireland and in Great Britain voted before, and they voted for party like Kukiz 15, which is now in PSL coalition, but that was before anti-system party in Poland, and now when we say anti-system Konfederacja, so I think the people will vote for Konfederacja, and the second ballot maybe Prawo i Sprawiedliwość, maybe Andrzej Duda.
Just purely from an ideological point of view, I would have thought they were voters on the right, so they would be more likely to support Duda rather than Trzaskowski, or possibly they will abstain, which is what I think often happens when people's first preference candidate has left the race. What role have divisions within the governing bloc? And I know there was quite a lot of argument within the Zjednoczona Prawica bloc in terms of the mechanics of holding the election, which was why it was originally delayed. And there were reports that Porozumienie might have actually left the ruling bloc, and Jarosław Gowin left the cabinet in his role as Deputy Prime Minister. What role have those divisions played in undermining Andrzej Duda's campaign to an extent, or has that now been healed?
Jarosław Gowin is now separate from worship and faith because his behavior disappointed simply in the Prawo i Sprawiedliwość electorate, people who vote for Prawo i Sprawiedliwość, Zjednoczona Prawica, although he himself justifies it by the fact that he really saved Poland from the claim of the invalid elections on May 10, because in his opinion the opposition would seek to annul them, to cancel them, and Prawo i Sprawiedliwość supporters don't believe him anymore in this way. They don't see this. As he said, only yesterday newspapers announced the end of his political career, the start of his political retirement. We don't know what will happen, but I think the main electorate of Prawo i Sprawiedliwość will send their vote for Andrzej Duda. This is no other way. And what we see right now, 40% for Andrzej Duda. It is very, very high.
For 11 candidates, one candidate on approximately 40% and another on 27, 28, depending on which poll you look at. So it's probably fair to say that Govin's main contribution so far has been in giving Platforma Obywatelska the chance to change their candidate.
I think the Prawo i Sprawiedliwość will remember it for a very, very long time. and the Zjednoczona Prawica can change it after the elections. But Jarosław Gowin is no longer a vice prime minister.
Yes. The issue there, though, really is that the government's majority in the Sejm is quite narrow, isn't it? So even if Gowin had only taken a small number of the Porozumienie deputies with him, the situation could have been quite tight in terms of voting.
Yeah, it is. Jarosław Gowin, a few days ago, Jarosław Gowin said in Telewizja w Polsce, when we talked, that after the elections, he can see some changes in the government. He wants to see some new faces. He wants to see a few less ministers. So I can see that Jarosław Gowin wants to play in the game, wants to be in the game after the elections, but Jarosław Kaczyński even he's not seeing it in the same way as Jarosław Gowin right now. And when I asked Jarosław Gowin who is the one to blame that the votes that we had will be on 28th of June, not May 10, he said the two people that we need to blame is himself, Jarosław Gowin, and also Jarosław Kaczyński. So we can see he is not going to be the one the only one to blame in his mind. So that is what he is thinking. But when we can see, as you said, what's the power of porozumienie in our government, in our parliament, it is not strong. And Jarosław Gowin, what he did, what he said before May 10, he also will pay his political bill.
So what implications do you see politically, both domestically and internationally, if Andrzej Duda is re-elected? The current government has clashed with the European Commission over the various so-called rule of law issues in Poland. Should Duda be re-elected despite the opposition's majority in the Senate, they would have a relatively free hand to proceed with further reforms. So what do you expect to happen should Duda win a second term?
Duda's presidency is a continuation of the Zjednoczona Prawica's rule. His presidency is a guarantee for reforms implemented in our country, in Poland. Relations with the European Union will be hard, will be tense as they are now, just like those with Hungary, when Prawica is also in the government. When the Duda wins, and it is not his fault, but the political right-wing community is now treated this way by the European Union people, and you can see in United Kingdom also what will happen, what can happen when government is not the same, has not the same opinion as European Union politicians. So it's simply guarantee these tense relations all the time. When Trzaskowski wins, there will be tense relations here in Poland. We will see maybe early elections, maybe sabotage of the government's actions in the presidential palace, because Rafał Trzaskowski is a strong opposition to Zjednoczona Prawica, and we will have a fight.
So you would see an early general election as very likely should Duda lose the election to Trzaskowski?
We will see.
So given Poland's history, it's very understandable that issues of national security feature very strongly in the national psyche. The current Prawo i Sprawiedliwość government has invested much political capital on enhancing the US military presence in Poland under the NATO umbrella. Andrzej Duda has been invited to meet with President Trump at the White House this week. Is that likely to have much effect in swaying voters one way or the other?
I think voice of American Polonia is important for both, for Andrzej Duda and for Donald Trump. And also Donald Trump wants to have his votes about what he is doing with Poland. Andrzej Duda and Donald Trump has both his strong friendship and political friendship. In that case, it means business. We have in Poland NATO soldiers. Germany will not have his NATO soldiers. It is very important for Poland to be safe, especially when we watch the history of our country. When we are in Europe, we are in the middle. We are in the middle between the Germany and the Russia. What Russia did in 2014 in Ukraine, it is very alarmed for Poland, and we think we are safe here right now. But we need to watch every Russian's move, and NATO knows our fear, and Donald Trump knows our fear. We know what Russia can do. The meeting of heads of state can help convince voters in the United States and in Poland. When we are watching the former elections, it was the votes of American Polonia that Donald Trump won the presidential election. The voices of our community living overseas are also extremely important for the head of state in Poland.
Is there general political support across the spectrum in Poland for the enhanced US military presence? Outside of the present ruling bloc, would the opposition adopt a similar policy?
We don't know yet, but when we are watching what has been done in the 5 years when we are watching what we have right now, a stronger position in the NATO, we want to keep it. And when we are watching what President Obama did in the USA, he started it. So it is not only Donald Trump wants to keep us close, but Obama started it, and Donald Trump and Andrzej Duda political friendship is very, very warm.
So in terms of predictions, we can't really look beyond Duda and Trzaskowski being the two candidates who make it through to the second round. But as between those two in the decisive second ballot on July the 12th, what's your best instinct? And I know it's very difficult because the opinion polls, A, can be wrong, and B, they're very close at the moment. But what's your best instinct as to who stands the best chance of ultimately winning?
I think right now, when we are looking in the newspapers, when we are looking on TV informations, the daily informations, we can see a very, very strong fight between Duda and Trzaskowski once again. And what will happen in the ballot, I can now see that Duda will win. But what can happen next? It is the question, the big cities, what can they do in the election? What can people see in Andrzej Duda and in Rafał Trzaskowski's words? Because now we can see the 5 former years of Andrzej Duda's presidential, and we can see the 2 years of presidential Rafał Trzaskowski in Warsaw. And I'm afraid even for opposition voters, Rafał Trzaskowski is not a very good president in Warsaw. So what can he give to us in the whole country? We don't know. And we are also voting for parties, for their program, not for people.
Edyto, jeszcze raz dziękuję za rozmowę ze Irlandia.
Dziękuję bardzo, bardzo dziękuję.
To wszystko na ten tydzień. Zapraszam na kolejne podsumowanie z tydzień o tej samej porze. Dobranoc.